Battle through the heavens, Grand World. Chapter 66. Fight for money. Lei family, Lei Tai, please enlighten me. Some arrogant and conceited words were uttered by the white-robed young man. Most of the people on the viewing platform coldly snorted. Most of them despised the actions of the former during the past half a year. However, most of them could only sigh in their hearts at the talent of the former. Given the current strength of the former, he had the right to be arrogant. Xiao Yan narrowed his eyes and looked at the arrogant Lei Tai on the stage. The latter had a tall nose bridge, an angular face, and could be considered a talented person. At this moment, there was a proud sneer on the corner of his mouth as he looked at the challenger in front of him. It was as if he was looking at a dead man. Wang Fei hope that young Master Lei can be a little gentler when he attacks. Little Qing, who was called Wang Fei, let out a breath. He cupped his hands towards Lei Tai and said, although he had great confidence in his own strength. However, Wang Fei knew how vicious this handsome young man's heart was. A sovereign master of the same level wouldn't pose much of a threat to him. With his strength of only 8 sovereigns, if he wanted to win. He was daydreaming, but the temptation of 500,000 was too great. If he could get it, all the problems he was facing would be solved. Don't worry. Since you have admitted defeat, I will show you mercy. Lei Tai smiled coldly and looked at Wang Fei. After the judge gave the order, Lei Tai's body suddenly changed. With an extremely fast speed, he rushed towards Wang Fei with a faint thunderous sound. At the same time, a cold and cruel voice sounded in the arena, causing the expressions of everyone in the stands to change slightly. I don't want your life. You just need to leave behind a leg. Wang Fei's expression immediately changed drastically. A green color instantly surged onto the former's face. Sensing that the sharp wind from the fist was about to hit his face, Wang Fei did not have the time to curse. His body flashed and a faint origin monarch ki surged from his feet, attempting to dodge this ferocious attack. A voice that caused Wang Fei's heart to turn cold suddenly sounded. Without waiting for the former to react, a leg that carried a lightning-like momentum swept over. Wang Fei's expression changed wildly. If this kick were to land, it was likely that his leg would be crippled. Immediately, the origin monarch ki within his body surged out wildly, forming a faint light curtain in the direction where Lei Tai's lightning-like kick was heading. Silver light flickered on the light curtain. Clearly, it possessed an extraordinary defensive strength. Just as Wang Fei was thinking, a rushing wind sound suddenly sounded. Before Wang Fei could react, a cold palm grabbed his neck. With just a slight force, his head would probably be separated from his body. Seeing that Wang Fei, who was at the peak of the 8 sovereign warriors, was defeated by Lei Tai so easily, most of the people on the stage took a deep breath. This guy's strength. Sure enough, he was much stronger than half a year ago. Wang Fei's neck was pinched by Lei Tai. When he saw the sinister smile on the latter's face, his heart started beating wildly. His voice trembled slightly. I admit. Before he could finish his words, Lei Tai's knee suddenly slammed into the former's thigh. Immediately, the clear sound of bones cracking resounded throughout the entire martial arena. When the people on the viewing platform saw this scene, their faces shook. The eyes that they looked at Lei Tai once again revealed some anger and fear. Immediately after, an inhuman shrill cry suddenly sounded out from Wang Fei's mouth. The pain of his bones cracking was deep in his heart. The former's body trembled and he fell onto the stage due to the intense pain. This kid from the Lei family is a bit too vicious. At this moment, on the VIP seats, a low voice filled with anger slowly sounded out. Anyone could hear a trace of killing intent in the voice. Xiao Yan also looked in the direction of the voice. He saw a middle-aged man in brocade robe standing up from the VIP seats. A dignified and imposing aura arose spontaneously. City Lord, a child's play. If you want to make a move, it would be a little discrediting of your status. On the side, Rek, who was dressed in colorful clothes, also stood up and stared intently at the middle-aged man. When the middle-aged man heard this, he took a deep breath and looked at Lei Tai with a gloomy expression, who was acting as if nothing had happened. He turned around and said to Rek with a cold smile, "If it wasn't for you, that little bastard Lei Tai wouldn't even be able to get out of this martial arena." Rek's expression darkened when he heard that. After a long time, he said with a fake smile, "But I won't die for a while." Furthermore, this was Fei Tai's 96th winning streak. There are still 4 more matches. I hope the city lord won't disappoint me. The middle-aged man snorted coldly, flicked his sleeve, and said in a cold voice, I also wish that he can win 100 matches in a row. Don't be crippled or beaten to death by anyone in the next match. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, Rex sneered and said, many thanks for the city lord's concern. But I think that the city lord's wish probably won't come true. With another snort, the middle-aged man returned to his seat. He glanced at a young and beautiful girl in a white dress beside him and shook his head with a bitter smile. Upon seeing this, the latter's face turned gloomy. She gently bit her red lips and looked at the insufferably arrogant Lei Tai. Her beautiful eyes flashed with undisguised hatred. When the people below saw the 2 experts competing against each other, they seemed to be used to it. After a short quarrel, they looked at the competition ground again. Wang Fei, who was about to lose consciousness, had been carried away. That's the city lord, Xiao Yan asked softly when he saw the middle-aged man. Qin Fei nodded, but he smiled bitterly in his heart. Just now, when Lei Tai crippled Wang Fei's leg, he saw a trace of killing intent flash across Qin Wei's face. Now that he saw that the conflict between the city lord and Rek had become much more intense than usual, he knew that. He was afraid that what his father told him yesterday would come true today. This bastard Lei Tai is a little too ruthless. He came back to his senses. Qin Fei looked at the stage and saw no change in Lei Tai's facial expression. He was the second young master of Mercenary Corps. He was living the life of adding blood to the tip of a blade, but he still felt some fear towards Lei Tai's ruthlessness. On the other hand, Xiao Yan had a calm expression on his face. At the moment when Lei Tai crippled Wang Fei's leg, his facial expression didn't change at all. Who exactly is this guy? After easily crippling Wang Fei, Lei Tai's facial expression was the same as before. He still had a faint smile on his face. However, that smile was cold and vicious in everyone's eyes. After waiting for a moment, before anyone could challenge him, Lei Tai furrowed his brows. He had fought for more than half a year for the so-called 100 battle agreement. In this half a year, every time he saw that girl who was getting prettier and prettier, his heart felt like it was on fire, and he wished for nothing more than to immediately embrace the beautiful woman into his embrace and warm her up. However, because of the ruthless words of the city lord, he still dispelled this thought. It was more important to him than anything else for this 100 battles agreement. Today was the last 5 battles, and he had to finish everything he said. Therefore, Lei Tai was still very dissatisfied with this kind of cold scene. Regarding this sudden cold scene, the spectators on the stage were stunned for a moment before they understood what was going on. This kind of thing was within reason. Given the degree of viciousness of Lei Tai's attack, anyone who wasn't an idiot would be able to tell that he was courting death if he went up again. Although money was good, one must still have the life to spend it. Brother Xiao Yan, aren't you going up? Qin Fei asked when he saw that Xiao Yan was still looking at the stage with a calm expression. Xiao Yan sneered when he heard this. He glanced at Rek, who was also a little anxious behind him. A strange light flashed across his eyes as he said in a low voice. That depends on how much Rek wants me to pay for Lei Tai's life. After he finished speaking, Qin Fei was stunned. Xiao Yan smiled and looked at the stage again. He narrowed his eyes and tried to understand Lei Tai's fighting style again and again. On the VIP seats, Rek couldn't help but stand up when he saw the hall suddenly turn cold. His face was gloomy as he swept across the hall. The words that were rapped by the Origin Monarch key resounded clearly in everyone's ears. If anyone is willing to fight, the Lei family will immediately offer 50,000 Monarch crystals. If you win, the reward will be 600,000. Wah! When they heard the sudden increase in the conditions, many people in the viewing gallery were startled. Immediately, there were some disturbances. Some of the youths below the age of 25 also began to stir. Their eyes were completely red as they looked at Lei Tai, who was on the competition stage. The fear on their faces also became much fainter. There was always a brave man who was rewarded handsomely. 600,000 Monarch crystal was an extremely great temptation to most of the people here. The crowd was in an uproar for a moment. A young man, whose strength was around that of 70 Shi, took a deep breath and appeared on the competition stage in front of everyone's eyes. As soon as the referee shouted the start, The young man who hadn't even used the monarch skill was suddenly kicked in the chest by Lei Tai, and his chest sank. The young man spat out blood and flew backwards, smashing into a chair and shattering it. The young man who hadn't been on the fighting stage for even a minute tilted his head and lost consciousness. 97 matches. Lei Tai kicked the young man off the stage. His handsome face revealed a trace of ecstasy. There were only 3 more matches left before he would be able to obtain the beauty he had been longing for that night. When he saw this young man lose so quickly, the gloominess on the face of the middle-aged man in the VIP seats became even heavier, and the slender hand that was tightly grasped in his hand heard the 97th match. It trembled slightly, and it seemed to be slightly icy cold. Rex stood in the VIP seats. His indifferent gaze swept across the venue and his expression became somewhat gloomy once again. This was because he discovered that some of the young men who were originally eager to give it a try had actually become quiet after Lei Tai's kick. All of them were cowering and did not dare to step forward. 700,000 monarch crystals. The indifferent voice once again smashed into the hearts of everyone present like a giant hammer. Some of them were even breathing heavily. 700,000 monarch crystal. So many monarch crystals. Most of the people in the venue had never seen such a large number of monarch crystals before. Qin Wei's expression was indifferent as he sat a little further away from Rek. He heard that the reward had increased by another 100,000. He frowned slightly and looked at Xiao Yan, who had a smile on his face. Qin Wei suddenly understood and sneered, 700,000 monarch crystals. Lei family's patriarch had such a big tone. It was hard to say whether the Lei family could earn 700,000 a year. I can't believe he's so generous this time. Rek cast a glance at Qin Wei, who was standing far away, and said with a faint smile on his face. Don't worry, Captain Qin. I know the Lei family's accounts better than you. Of course you know better than me. Qin Wei sneered and said, old thing, just say it. You can come out. What's the maximum reward? Your skill of boiling a frog isn't very smart to use here. What? Regiment Commander Qin wants your son to take action. That's good too. I'll make it clear. The highest price I can afford is 1.2 million monarch crystals. Who has the confidence to swallow it? Just come at me. After listening to Qin Wei's words, although Rek was furious in his heart, he understood. If he increased the reward bit by bit, these people would become numb sooner or later. He might as well use a fierce strike to shock everyone. Some people who were blinded by greed would naturally take action. 1.2 million. Hearing this number, everyone in the stand sucked in a breath of cold air. It was just as Lake had expected. In an instant, several young men stood up at the same time. Qin Wei's heart was slightly shaken by such a huge number. His face trembled. After that, he smiled faintly and said, although my son isn't as talented as your young master, his character is slightly better than yours. I'm already extremely satisfied. After saying that, the corner of Qin Wei's mouth suddenly revealed a trace of cunningness. He looked down at a certain spot and said in a clear voice, little friend Xiao. I have already helped you get the highest reward. You can also make your move now. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan, who was secretly shocked by Rek's price, couldn't help but be slightly startled. After that, he shook his head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. This old fellow was quite cunning. Chapter end. Chapter 67. Fight. Swoosh. Following Qin Wei's voice, everyone turned their eyes to where Xiao Yan was standing. There are many doubts and curiosity. Xiao Yan. Rek frowned slightly. His sharp gaze shot downwards like a sharp sword. What entered his eyes was a delicate and handsome face with a firm outline. On that face, a pair of bright eyes met Rek's gaze at this moment. He looked at the latter fearlessly. Lei Tai, who was on the stage, crossed his arms over his chest. When he heard Qin Wei's voice, he could not help but look in the direction of the voice. When he realized that Xiao Yan was merely an emperor master, a trace of shock flashed across his face. After which, he let out a cold laugh. An excited and cruel expression flashed across his eyes. After giving Rek an indifferent glance, Xiao Yan withdrew his gaze. With the pressure of the latter's monarch spirit level ki, it was completely useless to him. His soul force, which had suffered from the powerful ki, couldn't feel any pain when faced with such a weak ki. Lei family's master, how can you treat a junior? Using your ki to suppress a junior doesn't seem to be in line with your status. The first thing he noticed was the trace of qi in Rex's eyes. Qinwei was startled at first, but just as he was about to berate Xiao Yan, he saw that Xiao Yan had responded in a calm manner. Qinwei couldn't help but be startled for a moment, and swallowed the words that he was about to say. The middle-aged man next to Rex coldly harumphed at this moment, and his tone was filled with boundless coldness and fury. Anyone could feel how much anger was hidden in the seemingly calm words of the latter. Rex withdrew his gaze with a shocked expression and looked at the middle-aged man. He put on a fake smile and said, "It's rare for Regiment Commander Qin to place such importance on a junior. Of course, I have to observe him carefully." After saying that, he looked in the direction of Qinwei and said in a deep voice, "Regiment Commander Qin, this person doesn't seem to be from the Falling Rock City." Qinwei sat on the luxurious seat and listened to Rex's words. His eyes slightly narrowed as he said faintly, "Old thing, don't talk about this nonsense. That little bastard Lei Tai has already won 97 matches. If you still care about these things, you won't be able to finish your daydream today." Qinwei. Rex was the master of a family, and was once a disciple of a large family. The pride in his heart could be imagined. Now, Qinwei was an old man. A little bastard on the right. Rex finally roared out in fury, "Don't think that I won't dare to attack just because we are both Monarch Spirit Warriors. With your puny strength of 5 Monarch Spirit Warriors, I can kill you in 10 moves." Qinwei frowned. He could feel the powerful qi surging from Rex's body. He quietly looked at the middle-aged man sitting next to Rex. The middle-aged man also looked at Qinwei. Both of them nodded without revealing anything. As soon as Rex's peak of Monarch Spirit Qi erupted, it was like a thunderclap that exploded in the huge stadium, causing many of the weaker spectators' faces to turn pale. There were even some who were breathing rapidly, and sweat had already seeped into their clothes. "Rex, this place is not your Lei family." Just as everyone was feeling incomparably shocked, the silent middle-aged man suddenly shouted out loudly. A golden light suddenly radiated from his body, and it was like a sharp golden sword light was pressing against Rex. A sharp and fierce aura that was only a little bit inferior to Rex was also unleashed, and it broke through the pressure that filled the entire hall. When the furious Rex saw this, he paused for a moment. His eyes flickered for a moment, but he still kept the sharp aura back into his body with a gloomy face. After that, he said with a somewhat ferocious expression, "Lien Yunhai, you will definitely regret this in the future." In terms of strength, although Lien Yunhai had already reached the 8th Monarch Spirit, however, to Rex, who had been stuck at the peak of Monarch Spirit for 2 to 3 years, 8 Monarch Spirit warriors were not qualified to make him look at them directly. However, Lien Yunhai was the city lord of Falling Rock City. Although Falling Rock City was not big, there were 500 men from the city guards, and there was no lack of powerful people in the city guards. Moreover, even if there were more ants, they could still bite an elephant to death. With the basic strength of dozens of servants in the Lei family, he really didn't dare to offend Lien Yunhai, and Lien Yunhai also didn't dare to force Rex into a dead end. After all, the latter was a genuine peak of Monarch Spirit expert. Although the number of 500 city guards was shocking, however, there were no more than 20 guards who had reached the Sovereign Master level. It was still reasonable for these people to deal with the servants of the Lei family who were not weak. They had no chance of winning against Rex because of this. For the past year, Lien Yunhai and Rex had been rivals because of this delicate balance. It could be said that they had spent the year safe and sound, but now, this delicate balance seemed to have been broken. Lien Yunhai also looked at Rex with a gloomy expression and let out a deep sigh. He took a deep breath and said, "I am doing things impartially. This martial arena is under the jurisdiction of Falling Rock City. If you continue to use your aura to suppress others, don't blame me for being ruthless." Hearing Lien Yunhai's angry voice, Rex's face slightly trembled. In the end, he coldly snorted and looked at Qinwei in the distance with a gloomy expression. However, Qinwei turned a blind eye to his gaze. Instead, he turned his gaze back to Xiao Yan. "Kid, don't dawdle. If you have the guts, come up here." Lei Tai let out a sinister laugh when he saw that everyone was looking at him. His fingers made cracking sounds under his sleeves. He stared at Xiao Yan who was not far away from him. His eyes were filled with joy, as if his 98th winning streak was right in front of him. 1,200,000. As if he had never heard of the conflict just now, a trace of shock flashed across Xiao Yan's eyes. The reward of 1,200,000 monarch crystals. This Lei family was really wealthy. If they could get it, the 10 million holy rank trials needed for the holy rank trial would not be far away. When he thought of this, even someone as calm as Xiao Yan took a deep breath. An indescribable joy flashed across his eyes. Under the gazes of everyone present, Xiao Yan raised his head and smiled faintly. A trace of wind rose from under his feet, and then his body trembled. When he reappeared, he was already on the fighting stage. Seeing Xiao Yan's speed, Lei Tai's pupils couldn't help but slightly shrink. The smile on his face seemed to have faded a lot. He raised his head and looked at Xiao Yan. Facing Xiao Yan's indifferent eyes, Lei Tai's face darkened slightly. Then, he revealed a ferocious smile, but the strength of a sovereign master. So what if his speed was faster than his? In the face of absolute strength, any technique would be unable to withstand a single blow. A brilliant light flashed across his eyes. Lei Tai sneered and looked at Xiao Yan with a hint of madness in his eyes. The speed that Xiao Yan displayed was slightly stunned. Rek frowned. His strength was stronger than everyone in the viewing gallery. Hence, the effect of the speed that Xiao Yan had displayed just now was extremely deep. That kind of speed was not something that an ordinary sovereign master could possess. However, Rek's eyebrows immediately relaxed. He was extremely clear about Lei Tai's strength. He was even able to fight an ordinary 5 Dao Emperor Master. Moreover, the one called Xiao Yan was merely a Dao Emperor Master. There were at least 2 of these experts who had died in Lei Tai's hands. Qin Wei and Lian Yunhai were both monarch spirit experts. They could clearly see Xiao Yan's speed. Immediately, both of them felt a slight joy in their hearts. Especially Lian Yunhai, a trace of hope had quietly surged into his usually calm eyes. Beside him, a beautiful lady in a white dress also took a slight step forward. Her hand tightly grabbed onto the railing as she looked at the black-clothed young man in the arena with a nervous expression. Although this was not the last match, it could determine her future. Even Commander Qin Wei was quite satisfied with this young man. The speed he displayed just now was the first time she saw him among her peers. In her eyes, this young man was her last hope, so she could not help but be nervous. "Kid, this is my 98th match. Since the city lord and Qin Wei value you so much, I hope you can hold on a little longer. Don't be like the previous 2 people." Lei Tai patted his clothes calmly and said with a cold smile. "You sure talk a lot of nonsense, but don't worry. After all, it's 1.2 million. It will make you feel it." Xiao Yan gently clenched his fists. He didn't seem to mind when he sensed the sharp ki coming from Lei Tai's body. Hearing this, Lei Tai smiled coldly. "I just don't know if your strength is as powerful as your mouth. You don't know the difference between life and death. At that time, I will cripple your legs as a punishment." In the next moment, after the judge started speaking, Lei Tai's ki suddenly became stronger. His body flashed and his right hand turned into a palm, smashing towards Xiao Yan with a surging ki. "This speed is too slow." He smiled at Lei Tai, who was rushing towards him. The wind force under Xiao Yan's feet emerged, following him like a shadow. In the midst of the howling wind, Xiao Yan had already disappeared. When his palm hit empty air, Lei Tai's expression did not change. His right foot stomped on the ground, and his body immediately jumped to the side. In the next moment, his fist, which contained a great amount of force, landed on the spot where Lei Tai was standing a moment ago. Lei Tai's expression couldn't help but sink slightly when he felt the force of Xiao Yan's fist. The force of this punch was actually comparable to the full force of 2 sovereign masters. Before Lei Tai could recover his senses, he heard the sound of air colliding behind him. Immediately after, a sharp force was sent towards his back. Lei Tai was immediately shocked in his heart. It was already too late for him to dodge. He randomly moved his heart and in an instant, a lightning web quietly appeared behind him. In the next moment, Xiao Yan's 1000 illusionary dragon leg carried an incomparable sharpness as it ruthlessly struck the defensive lightning web. Wu, being ruthlessly struck by Xiao Yan's powerful leg technique on his back, even with the protection of the lightning web, Lei Tai still let out a muffled groan. A paleness swiftly surged onto his face as his body involuntarily pounced forward. The lightning web behind him also swiftly dimmed after blocking Xiao Yan's attack. "Bastard!" Lei Tai cursed angrily. His body suddenly stopped moving forward and forcefully stopped. He turned his head to look at Xiao Yan, who was laughing. Anger instantly filled his chest, and the pain on his back made him frown. Ever since he came to Falling Rock City, no one had made him feel pain. Looking at Lei Tai, who seemed like he was about to go berserk, a trace of seriousness appeared on Xiao Yan's face. Although the 1000 illusion dragon leg was just a leg, it was still a leg. Xiao Yan was very clear about the power of the intermediate grade monarch art. Even an ordinary second Dao Emperor level intermediate spirit beast would be severely injured if it was not killed by a kick. Lei Tai only let out a muffled groan. Thinking of this, Xiao Yan looked at the electric net that was gradually disappearing behind Lei Tai's back. He nodded his head as if he was deep in thought. It seemed like this electric net also belonged to the level of monarch arts. Rek, who was on the viewing platform, saw the scene just now. He could not help but raise his eyebrows slightly. He looked at Xiao Yan with a serious expression. Lei Tai had just used the intermediate defensive monarch arts that he had obtained from the Lei clan of Lingsing County. The lightning imperial net could even withstand a slightly weaker high-grade sovereign technique for a while. However, this young man was able to break the lightning imperial net with just an intermediate grade leg technique. How could this be possible? An excited look flashed across Lien Yunhai's eyes. After so many matches, this was the first time he had seen someone injure Lei Tai. This had increased the hope in Lien Yunhai's heart. Little guy, I'm counting on you. Looking at Rek, who had a slightly unpleasant expression, Lien Yunhai sighed and said in a low voice. Good kid, you have some skills. He sneered at Xiao Yan with a ferocious expression. Lei Tai suddenly said in a low voice, this is the first time you have made me feel pain. You are capable, but you have to pay for your rudeness. After saying that, Lei Tai's face darkened. An aura that was much stronger than the two sovereign masters erupted from his body. The fierce wind caused the faces of some of the people who were watching the battle with Fighting Monarch to turn red. Cold sweat covered their bodies. Peak of the three sovereign masters. Xiao Yan's brows slightly twitched. He couldn't help but look at Lei Tai with some surprise. According to what Qin Fei had said, half a year ago, Lei Tai was merely a peak 3 Dao sovereign master when he returned to Falling Rock City. Although there was still some distance between him and the 4 Dao sovereign masters, his cultivation speed was not slow. After stretching his body and listening to the cracking sounds of the bones in his body, Lei Tai's eyes were fixed on Xiao Yan. He said in a cold voice, Kid, it's over. The 98th victory, thank you for fulfilling my wish. As he said that, his body suddenly moved and shot out like a white stream of light. He shot towards Xiao Yan, and the powerful origin monarch ki rushed towards Xiao Yan like a golden blade. 3 sovereign masters. It's not like I haven't killed them before. Chapter end. Chapter 68. Attack. Wind and lightning claw. Lei Tai's speed increased dramatically. In just a few breaths' time, he had already arrived in front of Xiao Yan. Looking at Xiao Yan, who was right in front of him, Lei Tai gave a ferocious smile. His 5 fingers turned into claws, and a strike that contained a strong force of lightning struck towards Xiao Yan like a bolt of lightning. Xiao Yan's facial expression didn't change. When faced with Lei Tai's extremely sharp claw, not only did he not dodge it, he even slightly leaned his body forward. Both of his fists carried a rumbling sound as they struck towards Xiao Yan. The punch was aimed at Lei Tai's chest. The slight explosion caused Lei Tai's facial expression to change. Looking at Xiao Yan, who was trying to injure him, Lei Tai coldly harumphed. The corner of his mouth curved into a cold smile. His speed increased once again, and a fierce attack was launched. In the blink of an eye, he had arrived at Xiao Yan's chest, and the sharp edge of the lightning pierced towards the latter. Bang! His 5 fingers were like 5 sharp daggers as they fiercely grabbed downwards. At the same time, Xiao Yan's fist also steadily landed on the former's chest. The powerful force contained within the fist caused Lei Tai's face to instantly turn extremely pale. He let out a muffled groan, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. When Xiao Yan's fist landed on him, Lei Tai's fist also accurately grabbed towards Xiao Yan's chest. The sound of flesh being torn apart didn't ring out, and he was slightly stunned. Lei Tai could not help the blood in his chest tumbling. He spat out a mouthful of blood and staggered backwards. Xiao Yan threw out a punch. He glanced at his chest. There, a golden flame barrier was slowly disappearing. Raising his head, Xiao Yan waved his hand casually. The flame on his palm curled up, and the blood that spurted out in front of him disappeared. Looking at Lei Tai, who had taken a few steps back, Xiao Yan smiled lightly. He suddenly exerted strength on both of his legs and put his two fingers together. The pure origin of the flame surged onto his fingers like a hunting leopard, charging towards Lei Tai. Looking at the sudden reversal of the situation on the battlefield, everyone below the stage was shocked. Just a moment ago, Lei Tai had displayed his true strength. Before everyone could recover from their shock, Lei Tai, who had been charging forward aggressively, had already retreated in a sorry state. This dramatic change stunned everyone. This guy is able to knock Lei Tai back with just one palm strike. Qin Fei, who was standing below, saw Xiao Yan rushing towards Lei Tai. His facial expression became richer, although he was very confident in Xiao Yan's ability. That was because Lei Tai was the second Dao Sovereign Master. After Lei Tai unleashed his true strength, Qin Fei's heart suddenly skipped a beat. 3 Dao Sovereign Masters and 1 Dao Sovereign Master. The gap between them was not small, but the tension in his heart disappeared when Xiao Yan sent Lei Tai flying with a punch. On the high platform, Lien Yunhai finally let out a sigh of relief because of Lei Tai's explosive strength of 3 Sovereign Masters. Beside him, even Yunya heaved a sigh of relief, and her beautiful eyes were filled with anger. Not far away, the smile on Rex's face faded because of Lei Tai's retreat, and it was replaced by a gloomy expression. He could clearly see the mouthful of blood that Lei Tai spurted out. Even with the strength of his 3 Dao Sovereign Masters, they couldn't withstand a single punch from a single Dao Sovereign Master. Rex's vicious gaze was like a sharp sword as he looked at Xiao Yan's chest. There wasn't even a scratch on his clothes. How is this possible? The Wind Lightning Claw is an elementary sovereign art. No matter how hard this kid's bones are, there's no reason that he can't even scratch his clothes. A bright light flickered in his muddy old eyes. Rex's heart immediately tensed up as he looked at Xiao Yan, who was approaching Lei Tai. Woo! The pain in his chest made Lei Tai's forehead break out in cold sweat. His mind was in a trance because of this. When he came back to his senses, Xiao Yan's fingertip was only 4 or 5 inches away from his throat. Lei Tai could even feel the chill from the tip of his finger. In the nick of time, Lei Tai also let out a furious roar. The Origin Monarch Ki in his body surged wildly. In the blink of an eye, a layer of lightning wall was formed in front of him. On the lightning barrier, tiny lightning threads that were difficult to detect by the naked eye were bouncing continuously, showing an extremely powerful defensive strength. The moment the thunder wall appeared, Lei Tai's figure retreated explosively. He did not have the confidence to block Xiao Yan's fierce attack with the thunder wall that he hastily deployed. Although Lei Tai retreated extremely quickly, Xiao Yan's speed was even faster. Flames curled around his 2 fingers and streaked across the remaining space at lightning speed. The lightning wall that was swimming with lightning threads was like paper. With a slight tremble, it exploded with a loud bang. The lightning threads that filled the sky were reduced to ashes under the burning of the flames. He easily broke through the lightning wall, and his 2 fingers continued to stab towards Lei Tai's throat. With this kind of fierce attack, if it hit Lei Tai, he would be crippled even if he didn't die. Bastard! Seeing Xiao Yan charging forward once more, Lei Tai's already pale face lost its color. He cursed in his heart. Lei Tai clenched his fists tightly, trembling. He had already used his true strength and all the monarch arts he knew. He never thought that he would be beaten by this brat who was merely a sovereign master without any strength to fight back. Xiao Yan's finger sword grew bigger and bigger in his eyes. A trace of madness flashed across Lei Tai's eyes. With a flip of his right hand, a golden bead instantly appeared in his hand. The bead was purple in color, and there were traces of golden lightning lingering on its surface. It seemed to be full of power. A trace of pain flashed across his eyes. The next moment, Lei Tai decisively threw it at Xiao Yan and said with a ferocious voice. Bastard! Do you really think that I am going to lose for sure? Have a taste of this lightning accumulating pearl. Lightning accumulating pearl. Lien Yunhai seemed to have recalled something when Lei Tai took out the purple pearl. Now, he heard Lei Tai mention the name of this thing. Immediately, his facial expression changed drastically. He looked at Rek, who was standing not far away, with a calm expression. He took a deep breath and said in a trembling voice, due to anger, Lei family's master is really generous. As far as I know, this lightning accumulating pearl has been used by the Lei family for generations to reach the emperor cultivation level. The supreme elder who specialized in the lightning attribute used the lightning attribute origin monarch key that he had cultivated in his body for many years to solidify them. Every single one of these monarch emperor level experts was enough to cause serious injuries to the monarch emperor level expert. It was one of the trump cards of the Lei clan. He never thought that the patriarch of the Rex family would have such a precious grandson. Hearing Lien Yunhai's mocking words, Rex's face couldn't help but tremble. He let out a cold snort and gritted his teeth. Lien Yunhai, don't use these words to mock me. Although the lightning accumulating pearl in Lei Tai's hand is just an imitation, it won't be a problem for him to deal with a first-star sovereign master. As he spoke, the purple thunder accumulating pearl arrived in front of Xiao Yan with a thunderous momentum. Sensing the violent lightning energy in the thunder accumulating pearl, Xiao Yan's facial expression changed slightly. It was too late to dodge, so he could only resist it. As his eyes sparkled, the red flames on Xiao Yan's fingers trembled slightly. A golden flame replaced the former. The golden flame emitted a series of crackling sounds of thunder. It completely wrapped around Xiao Yan's fingers. Under the nervous gazes of the audience, the two fingers violently collided with the accumulating thunder pearl. Kai, 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 an unexpected explosion rang out. When Xiao Yan's two fingers pierced towards the accumulating thunder pearl, the golden flame on his fingers suddenly grew in size. It vaguely seemed to have transformed into a tiny lightning snake. As the flames curled up, it seemed as if the golden flame had transformed into a tiny lightning snake. The thunder accumulating pearl shot out several lightning arcs, completely enveloping the entire thunder accumulating pearl. In an instant, the sound of thunder resounded throughout the entire martial arena. When Lei Tai saw the thunder accumulating pearl and Xiao Yan's two fingers holding each other, a layer of astonishment immediately emerged on his pale face. Although this accumulating thunder pearl was a replica, it was like the difference between the clouds and the mud when compared to the real accumulating thunder pearl. However, its power couldn't be underestimated. At least, ordinary sovereign masters wouldn't be able to withstand it. This lightning accumulating pearl was something his grandfather had spent a great deal of effort to obtain a few years ago in the Lei clan. He did not expect that his first time using it would be disadvantageous to him. Feeling the surging lightning at the tip of his finger, Xiao Yan could not help but feel a layer of relief in his heart. Although the lightning contained within this lightning accumulating pearl was extremely mottled, it was extremely violent. If he did not possess 3,000 lightning monarch flames and use the pure monarch flames to devour it, he would likely have suffered some injuries. Both of his fingers shook slightly. The 3,000 lightning monarch flames on it became a little stronger. The golden fire snake quickly swam on the lightning accumulating pearl. The intense purple light of the lightning accumulating pearl weakened intensely wherever it swam. The lightning threads within it also disappeared. Crack! In an instant, the lightning accumulation pearl lost all its energy. The purple light disappeared and a soft shattering sound resounded in an extremely quiet place. After that, the lightning accumulating pearl, which Lei Tai had given him with infinite hope, shattered into pieces in front of his shocked eyes. Hiss! When they saw Xiao Yan break Lei Tai's trump card like a hot knife cutting through butter, everyone below couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Most of them were cultivators, so they naturally had a deep impression of the violent lightning contained within the lightning accumulating pearl. They never thought that this young man would actually break it in just a few breaths of time. The accumulating thunder pearl broke into pieces and fell to the ground. Lei Tai's heart also trembled, as if his heart had sunk to the bottom of the valley. Looking at Xiao Yan who was rushing towards him once again, he was at a loss for what to do for a moment. In an instant, Xiao Yan's two fingers approached Lei Tai's neck. The fierce wind that was contained on it instantly cut open a wound on Lei Tai's neck. Xiao Yan pressed his fingers against Lei Tai's neck and looked at the pale face of Lei Tai. With a glance, just as the killing intent in his heart was gradually condensed, a figure suddenly rushed over from the stands. The powerful palm wind carried the whistling sound of thunder as it rushed towards Xiao Yan. At the same time, Rex's furious voice resounded in everyone's ears. "Kid, if you dare touch him, I'll take your life." Before his voice faded, Rex's figure had already arrived on the fighting stage. A powerful palm struck fiercely at Xiao Yan. Sensing the powerful force of Rek's palm strike, Xiao Yan's facial expression changed. The wind force under his feet surged, and he dodged quickly, barely dodging Rek's furious palm strike. Pa! The palm that was covered with lightning struck down with full force, causing the place where Xiao Yan was standing to be blasted into a half-foot deep pit. After regaining his balance, Xiao Yan took a glance at his sleeve that had been shattered by the palm wind. He took a deep breath and a trace of anger appeared in his eyes. He raised his head and looked at Rek, who was standing in front of Lei Tai. Xiao Yan sneered and said, "Lei family's master, I don't think you should come to this place." Rek looked at the shallow wound on Lei Tai's throat and coldly harumphed. Just as he was about to speak, he heard an extremely cold voice coming from behind him. "Rek, you have violated the rules of the competition. Our agreement is invalid. Also, you actually attacked a participant. Could it be that you think nothing of the rules of our Falling Rock City? Today, you must give me an explanation." As he spoke, Lien Yunhai, who was wearing an embroidered robe, walked over with a gloomy expression. He happened to be protecting Xiao Yan behind him. At the same time, an aura erupted from his body. As his aura rose, his embroidered robe swayed, and his imposing aura caused the entire crowd to quieten down. The aura of a city lord was undoubtedly revealed. "No, this doesn't count." Lei Tai, who was standing behind Rek, screamed when he heard that the agreement was invalid. He knew what it meant when the agreement was invalid. When he thought about the fact that the beautiful girl could not fall into his arms, Lei Tai screamed desperately. "Humph!" Lien Yunhai stared at him expressionlessly and let out a cold humph. Lei Tai's scream came to an abrupt stop. When he saw Lien Yunhai's murderous gaze, Lei Tai couldn't help but shiver. Cold sweat instantly drenched his back and his proud head was lowered. "City Lord, this kid isn't from the Falling Rock City. The defeat this time shouldn't be counted. The agreement should be valid." Rek moved his body and completely blocked Lei Tai behind him. When he heard Lien Yunhai's words, he furrowed his brows and looked at Xiao Yan, who was standing behind Lien Yunhai, and said in a flat tone. Being angered by Rek's shameless smile, Lien Yunhai gritted his teeth and said, "Rek, have you lived to be a dog at your age? It's too late to say this now." "That's right. The Lei family is a prestigious figure in Falling Rock City after all. There are so many people watching from below the stage. Don't embarrass the Lei family." As soon as Lien Yunhai's voice faded, Qin Wei's voice sounded. As he spoke, the latter walked to Lien Yunhai. Intentionally or unintentionally, he blocked the path that Rek might take to attack Xiao Yan. Below, when Qin Fei saw Qin Wei walk onto the fighting stage, a trace of excitement quietly surged onto the former's face. Right now, the real show had just begun. Chapter End. Chapter 69, Lake's Scheme. At the same time, Qin Wei was standing in the middle of the clouds. Both of them were emitting a faint light from their bodies. The origin monarch key in their bodies was slowly moving, preparing to launch a powerful attack. Rek's indifferent eyes swept across the two of them, and he let out a disdainful snort. He had been stuck in the peak of monarch spirit for a few years. A 5th Dao monarch spirit and a 7th Dao monarch spirit were not worthy of his attention. He took a step forward and protected Let behind him. Rek looked at Lien Yunhai's solemn face and said in a strange tone, "City Lord, you better think about it. When we fight, I won't be lenient. What if I don't control my strength properly when the time comes? If I accidentally kill you, your daughter will be alone. But you can rest assured that even Yunya is my future granddaughter-in-law. I will take good care of her." Hearing Rek's words, Lien Yunhai's face turned gloomy. His body trembled slightly because of anger. After a long time, Lien Yunhai finally let out a long sigh. "Since that's the case, I can only use all my strength to kill you." At the end of his words, Lien Yunhai's face revealed a ferocious expression. Seeing that not only did his threatening words not shock Lien Yunhai, it even strengthened his desire to fight him. Rek couldn't help but feel angry in his heart. These two fellows are really tired of living. Rek's eyes swept across the two of them. Suddenly, his gaze stopped on Xiao Yan. Then, an unknown flame ignited in his heart. If it wasn't for this kid, Lei Tai would have easily won 100 matches. At that time, he would have been able to realize what he had been thinking for nearly a year, but now, everything had turned into nothingness. Xiao Yan's heart trembled when he saw Rek glaring at him. After a moment of hesitation, 3,000 lightning monarch flames appeared in a flash. Golden flames burned fiercely, protecting Xiao Yan tightly. Although the flames formed from the combination of the Chaos Great Monarch Flame and 3000 Lightning Monarch Flames were stronger, the defensive power of the Lightning Monarch skill was still better than the 3000 Lightning Monarch Flames. When the 3000 Lightning Monarch Flames appeared, Rex's turbid eyes were fixed on the former. He looked at the faintly discernible golden lightning threads that were moving along with the flame, and his heart was filled with doubt. Just what kind of flame is this, to actually be able to easily block the accumulating thunder pearl? After thinking for a moment, Rex did not have the slightest clue. Just as he was about to say something, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. In the next moment, an excited thought appeared in his mind. Could it be? This flame is the 3000 Lightning Monarch Flame that the Patriarch of Lei Clan has been looking for. When he thought of this, Rex's breathing became rapid. When he was still a member of the Lei Clan in the Linxing City, the Lei Clan had sent out an announcement to the entire family. The reward for finding the whereabouts of the 3000 Lightning Monarch Flames. When Rex saw the reward on the reward list, that made people's eyes turn red. Although he knew that this reward had nothing to do with him, he still felt helpless in his heart. However, out of an inexplicable mentality, Rex still remembered all the words on the reward list that described the 3000 Lightning Monarch Flames in his heart. Its color is golden, and there are lightning threads flowing within its flames. It has a strong immunity to the lightning element monarch skill. Although Rex could only remember a few words, he had no doubt that this young man in black had 3000 lightning monarch flames in his possession. Heavens, I actually met him. Rex's rapid breathing quickly calmed down. He narrowed his eyes and thought quickly. Soon, he made up his mind. Think about it carefully. I was indeed reckless in this matter. I hope that City Lord can bear the consequences of offending me. Rex put on an ashamed smile, cupped his hands towards Lien Yunhai, and said with a smile. Not only Lien Yunhai, Qin Wei and the other two were shocked by Rex's sudden change. The thousands of spectators below also let out surprised cries. Xiao Yan was startled. He also didn't understand why Rex had such a huge change. The corner of his mouth trembled. Xiao Yan looked at the calm Rex and thought to himself that Rex was indeed a man of many years of age. His skin was so thick that it made people speechless. What? Hearing what Rex said, the proud Lei Tai felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His face was full of disbelief. He subconsciously looked at Lien Yunhai, who was looking up at him. Lei Tai's expression became very interesting. Lien Yunhai expressionlessly looked at Rex. He slightly turned to Qin Wei and said in a low voice, "Brother Qin, what is this old man trying to do?" Qin Wei furrowed his brows, then he laughed lightly, signaling Lien Yunhai not to worry. After that, he said to the smiling Rex, "Since the patriarch of the Lei family is willing to apologize for his recklessness this time, I and the City Lord will not pursue this matter any further. However, the reward for this little friend Xiao's victory is 1.2 million monarch crystals. I hope the Lei family's master can take it out." As soon as these words were spoken, the people below didn't know what was going on. Everyone became excited once again. 1.2 million was undoubtedly an astronomical figure to them. Even to the wealthy Lei family in Falling Rock City, it was unimaginable. Did the patriarch of Lei family have the courage to do so? When Rex heard this, a trace of coldness flashed across his eyes. Without leaving any trace, he glanced at Qin Wei, then forced a smile and said, "Captain Qin is right. However, I came out in a hurry and didn't bring enough monarch crystals with me. I will go back with my grandson to prepare. Little friend Xiao's 1.2 million won't be a cent less." After saying that, Rex cupped his fists at the two of them. He didn't care about the expressions of the people below and was about to leave with Lei Tai, who was still in a daze. "Rex, do you really think this place is your Lei family? You can come and leave whenever you want." When Lien Yunhai saw this, he took a step forward and said angrily. Rex, whose back was facing Lien Yunhai, heard these words. When Lei Tai, who was following closely behind, sensed Rex's ki, his face turned pale with fright. He couldn't say a word. When Rex turned around, he had already put on a sincere smile. "City Lord, you are right. It's just that 1.2 million is too much. I have to go back and settle down." A light flashed across Rex's hand as he spoke. He flipped his palm and a monarch crystal card appeared in his hand. Since City Lord and company leader Qin have doubts, I will first offer these 200,000 monarch crystals as a deposit. As soon as he finished speaking, Rek flicked his finger and a dark green monarch crystal card flew towards Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan's eyes focused. When he sensed the sharp aura on the card, he laughed in his heart. Immediately, he stretched out 2 fingers and accurately caught the monarch crystal card that was flying towards him. His wrist shook slightly and the chaos great monarch flame flew along his meridians, eliminating the sharp aura on the card. Looking at Rek's change of attitude, Lien Yunhai was very suspicious. If it was any other time, with this old man's character, he wouldn't be able to suffer any losses. Seeing that Xiao Yan had caught the monarch crystal card as if nothing had happened, the blazing flames in Rek's eyes burned even faster. He then looked at Lien Yunhai and the old man, flicked his sleeve and said, I will take my leave now. Lien Yunhai, who was about to speak, was stopped by Qin Wei. He watched Rek leave in a hurry. Lien Yunhai turned around and was about to say something when Qin Wei spoke. City Lord, you have also realized it. Rek's behavior is too strange. Lien Yunhai nodded with a solemn expression. Rek's strange behavior had made him very suspicious. Furthermore, Qin Wei surveyed his surroundings. His eyes swept across the nearly 1,000 people in the combat arena. He paused for a moment before saying, there are too many people here. If we really fight, I think we will implicate the innocent. When Lien Yunhai heard this, he took a deep breath and said, Regiment Commander Qin's words make sense. It was this Lien who was too impulsive. Qin Wei turned to look at Xiao Yan, who also had a suspicious look on his face, and said with a smile, although old dog Lei gave us 200,000 yuan, based on his character, he absolutely wouldn't give up that 1 million yuan easily. We can use this as an excuse to fight Rek to the death. Lien Yunhai sneered. With a flip of his palm, a stack of books appeared in his hand. Isn't this enough reason to start a war with that old man? Qin Wei took a scroll and opened it. It was a request from the people of Falling Rock City to severely punish Rek. It listed many facts about Rek and Lei Tai's grandfather and grandson who had committed all kinds of evil deeds. Each and every one of them pressed their palms together. Qin Wei looked at the scroll with a gloomy face, then he sneered and said, it seems like old dog Lei and his precious grandson have already offended the heavens. In that case, let's take this opportunity to fight to the death. Lien Yunhai nodded his head and said to a corner of the audience platform, Qian Lai, immediately lead city guards to surround the Lei family. As Lien Yunhai's voice faded, a vigorous reply came from the corner. After which, a robust figure flashed past. After he finished speaking, Lien Yunhai cupped his hands towards the crowd below and said, Rek has disturbed the Falling Rock City. Today, I have been entrusted by the people of the Falling Rock City to announce that I vow to get rid of this disaster for the Falling Rock City. Hearing Lien Yunhai's loud voice, the people below immediately became excited. Cheers and cheers could be heard without an end, and some even shed tears of joy. Qin Fei couldn't help but smack his tongue. He looked at Xiao Yan who was standing on the stage and sighed in his heart. Most of the people in Falling Rock City didn't understand Lien Yunhai's forbearance. The one who initiated the war between Lien Yunhai and Rek wasn't Qin Wei, nor was he a famous figure in Falling Rock City. It was actually this young man who had just arrived in Falling Rock City. Little friend Xiao, thank you for your help. Leave the rest of the matters to me and Regiment Commander Qin. Lien Yunhai put away a pile of books and cupped his hands at Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan hastily returned the salute and said, City Lord is being too polite. The reason I'm here is mostly because of the 1.2 million monarch crystals. Lien Yunhai laughed heartily when he heard this and said, don't worry, young friend. Although that Rek is a nobody that has been removed from the list of the Lin Xing Lei clan, that old man has seized more than 1.2 million Falling Rock cities in the Falling Rock City. After Lien Yunhai finished speaking, Qin Wei also said, this battle is very dangerous. For the sake of your safety, little friend, you don't have to go. You and Qin Fei can return to the mercenary corps first. Before he finished his words, Lien Yunhai spoke. No need. Let Yunya and Xiao Yan go to the city lord's mansion. If Rek dies in the end, no one in the mercenary corps will be able to stop him. Qin Wei thought for a moment and nodded. That's right. It's still the city lord who is thoughtful. The defense of city lord's mansion is much stronger than the defense of mercenary corps. Even Rek can stop them for a moment. While the two were discussing, Rek had already brought Lei Tai to the Lei family by carriage. Rek's brows had been furrowed ever since he came out of the fighting arena. It took him a long time before he let out a long breath. He took out a silver medal from his pocket and handed it to Lei Tai. This is the symbol of the Linxing city's Lei clan, Tai. Take it and leave the city through the secret passage at home. Go to the West Star City where the Lei clan resides. When you see the person in charge of that place, Lei Dun, tell him. 3000 Lightning Monarch Flames. Chapter End. Chapter 70. The Battle of King Spirits. The carriage sped back to the Lei family. Rek hastily brought Lei Tai to the secret passage in the backyard. I have said everything that needs to be said. Remember, you must spread the word. If you successfully obtain that kid's flames, not to mention the small Falling Rock City, even the entire West Star County will have a place for us. Lei Tai's face was flushed due to excitement. He placed the Linxing City silver medal, Rek gave him into the storage ring. After hesitating for a moment, he said, Grandfather, Lian Yunhai and Qin Wei. Can you stop them by yourself? Rek patted Lei Tai's shoulder lovingly and said with a ferocious look. Don't worry. I don't care about their abilities. I'll hold them for now, then find an opportunity to leave this place and go to West Star City to look for you. The two of them aren't strong enough to stop me. Lei Tai nodded his head. In his heart, Rek was an invincible existence in the Falling Rock City. With the help of Lian Yunhai and Qin Wei, he could barely fight against Rek. It would be wishful thinking if he wanted to take another step forward. After giving a few more instructions, Lei Tai quickly left the place through the secret passage. When Lei Tai disappeared, Rek roared and threw a punch. The huge rock beside him was shattered. After covering the secret passage completely, Rek waved his sleeve. When he heard the noise outside the mansion, a cold smile appeared on his face. Lian Yunhai, Qin Wei, I'll let you live for a few more days. Outside the Lei family's main gate, the servants of the Lei family, who usually had an arrogant look on their faces, were curled up like eggplants. Looking at the dozens of city guards in front of them, all of them were so scared that they didn't dare to breathe. Nearly 50 city guards were all dressed in black armor. Their individual strength was at least 5 emperors. The middle-aged man at the front was called Qian Lai, and his strength was even at the peak of the Emperor Master realm. Everyone held long spears in their hands, and they looked majestic and awe-inspiring, bringing a murderous aura to the surrounding crowd. In front of the city guards were the embroidered-robed Lian Yunhai and Qin Wei. Both of their expressions were extremely solemn, and at this moment, Lian Yunhai was holding a book in his hand. He said in a deep voice, Reckon son Lei Tai. Since arriving in Falling Rock City, they have done all kinds of evil. Bullying men and tyrants women, disrupting the order of Falling Rock City. Now, there were hundreds of people in the Falling Rock City who were reading books, and they didn't kill Rek. It will not be enough to anger the common people. The words that were mixed with Origin Monarch Ki resounded like thunder, causing the surrounding crowd to cheer. Haha, Lian Yunhai, if you want to kill me, just say it. There's no need to use these words as a reason. After Lian Yunhai finished speaking, Rek's loud laughter was heard. After that, an old man dressed in colorful clothes walked out from the Thunder Prefecture. Rek sneered and looked at the dark city guards in front of him. He said in a mocking tone. What? Lian Yunhai, you want to kill me with these bastards? Lian Yunhai's face darkened. He waved his hand and said, disperse the defense and protect the safety of the people. Yes. The 50 men shouted at the same time. Under Qian Lai's command, the 50 city guards quickly spread out and evacuated the surrounding crowd. Although they were very interested in the battle between the 3 monarch spirit warriors, they knew how dangerous it was. With their strength, if they were to be affected by the battle, they would only die. Soon, everyone was evacuated. A large open space was formed in front of the Thunder Prefecture, and everyone's focus was undoubtedly on the 3 of them. Not far away, Xiao Yan, Qin Fei, and Lian Yunhai were quietly observing from the side. Looking at the tense atmosphere between the two parties, Xiao Yan couldn't help but reveal an excited expression. He had never seen a battle between monarch spirit with his own eyes. Back then, as a monarch emperor warrior, Zhao Qingshan had a higher level of combat with the Crimson Fire Flame Wolf. When it came to a battle of such a high level, it could only be seen from the outside. But now, it was different. Although he was still weaker than a monarch spirit, he could also observe a little bit about the essence of a battle at this level. What? You want to go and take a look? After hearing Xiao Yan's words, the expression on Qin Fei's face became extremely interesting. I think that old bastard Rek will hate you to death. If he finds out about you, he will definitely take the opportunity to get rid of you during the war. Qin Fei looked at the frowning Lien Yunya beside him. He faked a cough and spoke righteously. Seeing that Xiao Yan had turned a deaf ear to him, Qin Fei could not help feeling helpless. Just as he was thinking of other excuses, Xiao Yan's figure flashed and rushed towards the direction of the crowd. Lien Yunya was about to shout, but Qin Fei reacted quickly and covered her mouth. Keep your voice down. Don't let Rek hear you. Lien Yunya was also startled. Immediately, she revealed a frightened expression. Although she didn't know if Rek could hear her, this shout would definitely attract the attention of some people. There were too many people who remembered his performance in the combat arena. This fellow is really skilled and bold. Curling his lips, Qin Fei could only helplessly lean against the wall and sit down. Smelling the fragrance coming from Yunya's body, Qin Fei swallowed his saliva. He hurriedly shifted his attention to the battle that was about to begin. Although because of the friendly relationship between Lien Yunhai and Qin Wei, Qin Fei and Lien Yunya had met a few times before. However, this was the first time they were so close to each other. After the crowd was evacuated, Lien Yunhai and Qin Wei did not say much. Almost at the same time, a strong ki burst out from their bodies. Dense origin monarch ki formed a thick armor on their bodies. Lien Yunhai turned his wrist and a long sword with spiritual ki appeared in his hand. As the sword danced, the sound of air being cut could be faintly heard. The next moment, Lien Yunhai furiously shouted. With the strength of 10,000 men, he rushed toward Rek. At the same time, Qin Wei also let out an angry shout. The strong momentum caused some of the weaker people nearby to feel a tightness in their chests. Qin Wei flipped his hands. A glowing red spear appeared out of thin air. The moment the spear appeared, the spirit aura on in Qin Wei's hands surged crazily, and almost all of them flowed into the long spear in his hands. The tip of the spear quickly flashed with a red light, and it carried a terrifying aura as it rushed towards Rek. Tisk tisk, Dad actually took out the fire spirit spear from the beginning. Is this Rek really that strong? When he saw the spear in Qin Wei's hand, Qin Fei was stunned and somewhat lost his composure. This fire spirit spear was worthy of being called the spirit weapon. Compared to the usual saber, spear, and axe, it could not be mentioned in the same breath. In his memories, a few years ago, when he followed his father out, he unfortunately bumped into a high-rank spirit beast. At that time, Qin Wei had used the fire spirit spear to fight the high-tier spirit beast to the death. That was the first time Qin Fei had seen the power of the spirit weapon with his own eyes. Logically speaking, a spirit beast of the same level was much stronger than a human of the same level. However, the gap between them had been made up by Qin Wei with the fire spirit spear. Finally, he escaped from the devil claw of a high-tier spirit beast. Now that he saw Qin Wei, he attacked with all his strength. Qin Fei couldn't help but feel surprised. The uniqueness of the spirit weapon was that it could seal the monarch's skill. In a battle, one only needed to pour a very small amount of origin monarch ki into it to release the monarch skill that was sealed on it. And this monarch skill was permanent. Of course, as the saying goes, a penny is a penny. Low-level spirit weapons could only be sealed within low-level monarch skills. High-level monarch arts could be sealed, or even more powerful saint-level monarch skill. They could only rely on stronger spirit weapons, or even more powerful heavenly weapons. Or the legendary saint weapon. And my father's jade spirit sword. He spent a huge sum of money to buy it before he took office in Lingsing County. Now, he has also taken it out. Beside him, even Yunya was clearly aware of how powerful the spirit weapon was. When she heard Qin Fei's words, she lightly nodded her head and said, "This is the spirit weapon." The surrounding people were also very knowledgeable. When they saw the shiny weapons in the hands of Lien Yunhai and Qin Wei, some of them immediately cried out in surprise, which immediately attracted a wave of exclamations. Spirit weapon. When Xiao Yan heard this, he couldn't help but turn his attention to the weapons in their hands. He frowned, then remembered what Elder Yi had told him before. His blue flame ruler seemed to belong to the category of spirit weapon, but as for what level it belonged to, he couldn't make heads or tails of it. While Xiao Yan was lost in his thoughts, Yunhai and Qin Wei had already arrived in front of Rek. Without any hesitation, the powerful monarch skill smashed towards Rek. Fire Spirit Devour. Jade Heavenly Star Spirit Light. In an instant, sword light soared into the sky, and spear light shot out in all directions. The fiery red fluctuation carried a dazzling light as it crazily rushed towards Rek. Insignificant skill. After the initial shock, Rek's ugly expression gradually recovered. Immediately, he let out a furious roar, and his entire body was covered in lightning. Silver lightning danced on his palms at a rapid speed, and in the next moment, his palms, which were accompanied by a buzzing sound of thunder, violently smashed towards the incoming light. Sizzle sizzle. When Rek's palms collided with the monarch skill that Lien Yunhai and Yunhai had used together, the initial rumbling sound had disappeared, and an ear-piercing hissing sound was heard. When the two men saw this, they didn't stop there. The origin monarch key in their bodies once again crazily poured into the spirit weapon in their hands. In almost an instant, the fire spirit spear and the jade spirit sword once again shot out a bright light. The sharp spear light and the sword light once again slowly condensed. Under the control of Lien Yunhai and Qin Wei, another wave of spirit weapon monarch skill was launched at Rek. Bastard! When Rek saw this, he furiously shouted. The lightning on. His palms became even more intense. His fingers slightly bent, and a powerful sonic boom was suddenly heard. In an instant, the two spirit weapon monarch skill, which had been holding hands with Rek for a moment, were destroyed with a loud bang. Lightning King Arm. The moment before the second wave of attack was about to hit Rek roared continuously. Lightning flashed on his arms and his sleeves were instantly turned into ashes. The veins on his originally thin arms were now bulging. Silver lightning threads wrapped around his arms, making him look indestructible. Boom! Rek's arms and the two spirit weapon monarch skill suddenly clashed together, and a deafening explosion was heard in an instant. It caused the ears of some of the weaker people to buzz, and a strong airflow to spread out. After sweeping across the empty land, some of the city guards covered their faces with their hands. The weaker spectators were even more helpless as they tried to offset this air current. They could only stagger backwards. When Xiao Yan, who was still behind the crowd, saw this, the smile on his face became even wider. The impact of this level of ki had no effect on him, who possessed the prestige power spell. With a light step, he easily arrived in front of the crowd. Destroy! Rek let out a furious roar. Both of his arms suddenly shook and the sound of thunder rumbled. Two spirit weapons, one red and one white, slowly disappeared. Seeing Rek, who had easily broken through two attacks without much effort, Lien Yunhai and Qin Wei couldn't help but glance at each other. They could see the seriousness in each other's eyes. This old man was indeed worthy of being a peak of monarch spirit expert. Although their spirit weapon was only a low-grade spirit weapon, the monarch skill sealed within was only a low-grade monarch spell. However, when the two of them combined their strength, the first exchange of attacks actually didn't affect Rek in the slightest. Hee, I never thought that both of you would have a spirit weapon. I have miscalculated. I didn't realize it during these few years. Rek's face was gloomy. He looked at his arms, then raised his head and said with a ferocious smile, my Lightning King arm is a high-grade monarch spell. It took me a lot of effort to resist both of your spirit weapons. It seems that if I don't show my true strength, I might really die here today. After saying that, under the shocked eyes of Lien Yunhai and Qin Wei, Rek turned his wrist and a curved blade with a bright light appeared. I'll let the two of you have a look. This is my spirit weapon. Chapter end. Hi guys, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.